Not every American has the cash to chase every whiskey brand out there, and some folks have been hunting the perfect pour for over 2 centuries, knocking back millions of cases along the way. But let's be real, most bottles are harsh enough to strip varnish. Some whiskeys hit smooth, layered notes that make you savor every sip, while others are forgettable swill you'd rather forget. Today on Pour Project, we're taking the hidden road to avoid 5 disappointing whiskeys, but we're not leaving you empty-handed. Stick around because I'm also dropping my personal in the top 3 hidden gems that actually deserve your attention. 8. Still House. Let's start with Still House, because there's a lot to unpack here. Right off the bat, this whiskey kind of makes you judge it before you even taste it, mostly because of the packaging. Imagine pouring whiskey out of a tin that looks like it could hold paint thinner, and honestly, that's not far off from the flavor. Still House claims to be America's finest, but if that's true, America might need to reconsider its whiskey game entirely. It's unaged and pretty much just tastes like corn and ethanol. Think paint thinner, but the drinkable kind. Obviously, definitely don't actually try paint thinner, though. Reviews across the board seem to agree. Whiskey Sidekick called it a corn dog in a can, which is equally hilarious and accurate. Basically, if you've ever eaten a corn dog and thought this would make a great drink, congratulations, you've nailed the Still House experience. Still House also makes a bunch of flavored whiskeys, and honestly, adding flavors doesn't save it. It kind of makes it worse. Take their peanut butter s'mores flavor, which the Whiskey Wash slammed with a 4 out of 10. It's clearly aimed at a particular audience that enjoys pouring ridiculously sweet and syrupy shots straight out of a tin. So the takeaway? Avoid Still House if you care about actual whiskey flavor, because this one's mostly a gimmick. 7. Lord Calvert. Next up, Lord Calvert. And yes, sorry Canada, this one's coming back to you. If you're curious about the quality, just know that Walmart sells a 1-liter bottle for $10.98, and as of now, it's out of stock, which is probably for the best. Sure, there are decent budget whiskeys, but this isn't one of them. Tasting it is like sipping spicy rubbing alcohol. Again, don't actually try rubbing alcohol, but that gives you an idea. The community over at Distiller gave it a 1.88 out of 5 stars, and even that rating is skewed by a couple of wild 5-star votes that were probably from people with a taste for chaos. Redditors mostly agree, describing it as alcohol with a strong burning edge, so nothing smooth or subtle here. One Redditor even said, "There's no mixer out there that can take the edge off. Don't expect a plastic jug of doom from Canada to taste like the nectar of the gods." Basically, avoid Lord Calvert if you want to drink something drinkable. It's harsh, and more of a punishment than a pour. 6. Taguchi Japanese Whiskey. Now Taguchi, this one's a bit tricky, and honestly it's one of those whiskeys where what's inside the bottle and what you think you're buying don't always line up. On the shelf, it's marketed as Japanese whiskey, and yes, it is blended and matured in Japan, but the story behind it is more complicated than you might expect. The brand comes from Chugoku Joso, a producer near Hiroshima that's been around since 1918, best known for sake and shochu. In the early 1990s, they added whiskey to their lineup. But unlike most major Japanese distilleries, they didn't originally distill all of it themselves. Instead, they sourced malt whiskey from Scotland and grain whiskey from Canada, bring it to Japan, and then blend it and age it there. That aged in Japan process is how it qualifies as Japanese whiskey under local law, even though the liquid started life abroad. Taguchi goes through a kind of cool, unusual aging step. Barrels are stored in an abandoned railway tunnel near the town of Taguchi, where temperatures and humidity stay fairly steady, a condition some say encourages mellow aging. Here's the thing, because the core spirit is imported, purists argue that many Taguchi expressions don't deliver the same sense of place or authenticity as whiskeys fully distilled and matured in Japan. Some of the standard blended expressions, especially the no-age statement versions, can come off as light, smooth, and a bit one-dimensional compared to more classic single malts. So if you're picking up Taguchi hoping for a truly traditional Japanese whiskey experience, you might walk away disappointed. It's drinkable and has its fans, and some lighter expressions are decent in cocktails or mixed pours. But if authenticity and memorable flavor matter to you, you'll likely want to explore other Japanese whiskeys instead. 5. Levant Highlands Black Peak. Levant Highlands Black Peak is a whole different beast, and honestly, it's one of the most extreme whiskey expressions out there. This single malt comes from Riachi Distillery in Lebanon, and it's known for being wildly smoky. The expression takes its name from Lebanon's highest mountain peak in the Cedar Mountains, and the folks behind it lean into that rugged theme by aiming for ridiculously intense peat and smoke in the spirit. What makes Black Peak so intense is how it's made. The mash bill blends Scottish peated malted barley with locally sourced sun-dried malted barley, and then they cold smoke it using Lebanese peat from the Amik wetlands before double distilling everything in copper pot stills. After that, the liquid is matured for at least 5 years in new charred American oak barrels. That process is designed to pack as much smoke and peat flavor into the whiskey as possible, almost like capturing a bonfire in a bottle. Here's the thing. Reviewers and whiskey communities agree this isn't for casual sipping. On sites like WhiskeyBase, Black Peak scores very low, sitting around 14 out of 100, which is shockingly bad for most palates. In the tasting notes people leave there, you'll find descriptors like solvent-like or overpoweringly smoky, and a finish that's often described more as challenging than enjoyable. So unless you're a hardcore peat head who really loves whiskeys that taste like you're inhaling a campfire, and maybe even a bit of iodine and earthy smoke, steer clear. For most people, it comes off as overwhelming, unpleasant, and frankly, cough-inducing rather than delicious. Avoid Levant Highlands Black Peak unless your dream really is sipping bonfire-level smoke in a glass. 4. Jim Beam Red Stag. Finally, let's talk about Jim Beam Red Stag. There's some debate about whether it even counts as whiskey, but for our purposes, it does. This one often gets picked up by newcomers to whiskey as an entry point, and while it's not terrible compared to some others, it's far from ideal. Jim Beam's Red Stag has an official rating of 3.8 out of 5 stars, but that doesn't tell the whole story. Many reviewers complain about a formula change that dropped the proof from 40% to 32.5%, which makes it taste noticeably weaker. Some reviews are brutally short and to the point, like one titled simply, "No." A lot of people say it tastes like cough syrup rather than whiskey. As one reviewer put it, "If I wanted cough syrup, I would have bought cough syrup." Some flavored whiskeys can actually be enjoyable if done right, like adding vanilla to a mediocre whiskey, which can make it drinkable. Red Stag doesn't manage that. The artificial sweetness, medicinal notes, and syrupy texture make it tough to enjoy straight. Some might find it passable in a whiskey sour, but overall it's better avoided if you want to genuinely enjoy your whiskey. Now that we've covered the whiskeys to avoid, let's switch gears and talk about 3 hidden gems that are absolutely worth your attention. These are the whiskeys that really deliver on flavor, complexity, and craftsmanship. 3. Redemption 18-year-old bourbon. First up is Redemption 18-year-old bourbon, and this one really makes a statement. Some folks even go so far as to say it's better than Pappy Van Winkle 23, which is a wildly bold claim in the whiskey world. Aging a bourbon for 18 years is no easy feat because it's so easy for oak to take over. But this version somehow stays balanced, rich, and complex without becoming harsh or overdone. What makes it extra interesting is that it's part of Redemption's ancient series, and it was distilled way back in Lawrenceburg, Indiana, at the famous MGP distillery, before being rediscovered and bottled by Redemption's master blender, Alan Kennedy. Only about 2,400 bottles were made, which makes it feel pretty exclusive. On the palate, you'll find layers of flavor that keep evolving as you sip. Think warm oak and rich cherry jam up front, sweet corn and vanilla in the middle, and hints of leather and cinnamon rounding things out. The finish is medium to long, with lingering oak and vanilla, and just a touch of that cherry sweetness. It clocks in at about 103.4 proof, which gives it a pleasant warmth that doesn't scorch your tongue. Sure, it's a splurge at around $399.99 a bottle, but compared to some ultra-premium whiskeys, it's a relative bargain. And honestly, if you love a well-aged, nuanced bourbon that's rich without being over-oaked, Redemption 18 is really hard to beat. 2. A. Smith Bowman Hungarian Oak. Next up is A. Smith Bowman's Hungarian Oak. And this one isn't just another bottle on the shelf, it's the finale of a pretty ambitious experiment from Virginia's oldest distillery. This release wraps up the Abraham Bowman Oak series, which set out to test how different oak woods from around the world influence whiskey flavor. The first two in the series were the French Oak and American Oak expressions, and Hungarian Oak came out in August 2025 as the third and final installment. What makes Hungarian Oak stand out isn't just that it's aged for 12 years in charred Hungarian oak barrels, though that alone is pretty cool. It's that the oak changes everything you expect from a long-aged bourbon. Instead of heavy pepper or classic old bourbon spice, the Hungarian Oak delivers a richer, more glossy profile that surprises a lot of folks who thought they knew what a 12-year bourbon should taste like. Bottled at 115 proof, the whiskey pours with a brown velvet color and opens with an aroma of candied apricot. On the palate, you get warm honey apples and a pronounced smoky dark chocolate feel, and the finish hangs out with dried fruit and char lingering on the sides of your tongue. This release is particularly sought after because it's not widely distributed. Instead, bottles were made available through an online lottery, and winners have to pick up their bottles in person at the distillery in Fredericksburg, Virginia. What's really interesting about Hungarian Oak is how approachable it manages to be for a limited edition bourbon. It's rich and well-rounded without burning out your palate, and it's a great example of innovation in American whiskey. So if you've been hunting for something that feels unique, sophisticated, and different from the usual, and you happen to win that lottery, this bourbon is absolutely worth your attention. 1. Wild Turkey Masters Keep Beacon. Finally, let's talk about the crown jewel of the hidden gems, Wild Turkey Masters Keep Beacon. This isn't just another bourbon, it's the final release in Wild Turkey's beloved Masters Keep series, which began back in 2015 as a way to explore rare and experimental bourbons outside the distillery's core lineup. Beacon caps off a decade of standout releases and is the first in the series to feature both Eddie Russell's and his son Bruce Russell's signatures on the bottle, which feels like a real passing the torch moment for the brand. What makes Beacon truly special is that it's a hand-selected blend of 10-year-old and 16-year-old bourbons pulled from different eras of Wild Turkey's history. Eddie picked the older stock distilled back in 2007 to 2008 before the distillery's expansion, while Bruce contributed barrels he helped produce in 2015 during his earlier years working alongside his dad and grandfather, the legendary Jimmy Russell. Those combined ages, plus the attention to detail in blending, result in a bourbon that stands out in complexity and character. Beacon is bottled at 118 proof, 59% ABV, making it the highest proof release in the Masters Keep line. And that boldness doesn't translate to harshness. Instead, it gives the whiskey a rich, layered profile that's bold without feeling unbalanced. On the nose, you'll find dark fruit, cherry, honey, vanilla, and a touch of cola. And on the palate, there's caramelized sugar, toffee, warm baking spice, tea, and a long, oak-driven finish that lingers in a really satisfying way. This release isn't just about flavor, it's about legacy. It marks the end of a chapter in Wild Turkey's history while highlighting the craftsmanship of 3 generations of Russells. If you're hunting for a bourbon that feels worthy of both celebration and deep appreciation, Beacon is a standout choice that is rich, balanced, and truly representative of thoughtful whiskey making. That said, for those who stick around, it's time to talk about a personal hidden gem that truly deserves your attention. Remus Gatsby Reserve. This bourbon has made a big impression, so much so that it appeared twice in my taste test column this year, the 2024 release early in the year, and the brand new 2025 edition just this month. MGP might have had some rough patches, like many distilleries, but they continue to put out some really excellent whiskey, especially under their own in-house brands, rather than the big-name contracts they produce for. Remus Gatsby Reserve is a perfect example of this. It's a 15-year-old bourbon bottled at cask strength, clocking in at 102.8 proof, made from MGP's 21% rye mash bill. That rye adds just the right touch of spice to balance the natural sweetness of the bourbon. On the palate, it's rich and textured, giving you a layered drinking experience that keeps you coming back for more. You'll find notes of cherry syrup, maple, caramelized brown sugar, and vanilla custard, all mingling beautifully with hints of licorice, toasted oak, and even a touch of cola. What really sets this bourbon apart is how the heat hits just right enough to give it presence, but never overwhelming the nuanced flavors. It's one of those pours that reminds you why you love whiskey. Complex, balanced, and genuinely rewarding with each sip. If you're searching for a hidden gem that delivers serious flavor and craftsmanship, Remus Gatsby Reserve should be at the top of your list. And that's that for today's video. Thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next one.